Ladies and gentlemen, in this video I will take you to a masterclass given maybe 70 years ago by the famous, legendary, I would say, Pablo Casals, the cello player, and much more than that. What he has to say about Brahms, especially tempo, will shock you. This video was sent to me by one of you, by the way, who reached out through email recently, and I was speechless when I saw that. And immediately my thoughts went not only to our research, but also to a hangout we had on Patreon recently in April, where the question was asked to Alberto for the middle movement of the Pathétique. And what Alberto said there was almost exactly, not wordly, but like the same meaning as Casals had. So this was a moment where things came together. Casals from memories of Brahms, Alberto from his practical just experience. And since he is talking about the middle movement of the Pathétique, we're going to have a very quick look at that movement and see how he performs that. And we're going to connect that to Barenboim's Beethoven Pathétique second movement, which is a world of difference. We're going to do all of that, but before we dive into the content of this video, do me a big favor, subscribe to this channel, that helps big time, and go to our Kickstarter page. We are launching Chopin first volume of the piano works next Monday, so the 2nd of June. But already now you can go over to Kickstarter and just click on the notify me on launch. Even if you're not sure if you would like to back this product, this recording, just do it because you would help us tremendously. Kickstarter really values these early notifications a lot because that shows that we have an audience that cares. And I know all of you care about the things that we are doing. So there will be a link in the description box. I would very much appreciate that when you would just check it out. For now, notify me on launch, and next week I will make a dedicated video on the Chopin launch with everything that what's in there. So normally I would say without further ado, but I just have to mention this also. This just released our first volume of the Beethoven keyboard works. I think it's the first time that this box actually is joined by the new box. So there will be a third one with Chopin volume 1 if you want that, because Kickstarter is all of nothing. And actually I should have like a little cabinet or something over there, because there are other recordings there that are hidden by my back or whatever, and it's a pity. So I want to have something beautifully lit over there so we can highlight all of our recordings. Very proud of this one. Check it out. A beautiful color, by the way, and I could talk about this forever, but we're not going to do that because I want you to just hear what Pablo Casals had to say about Brahms. So this is a masterclass given at Berkeley, and Casals is talking about the Brahms piece. Just listen to how he said Brahms was actually counting the notes.
I advise you to take a more Brahms tempo. A Brahms tempo which is very often misunderstood. Brahms, as I have direct help from Brahms, he counted his allegros not by if it is 1, 2, 1, 2. He didn't count like that. He did count the eighths. The eighths. Allegro vivace for him is that, this. 1, 2, 1, 2. For us, ordinarily, it would be andante. 1, 2. For Brahms, it is allegro vivace. Why? Because he counts the eighths from 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You see? Well, this is very, very necessary to know for that, and this is why Brahms is very often, nearly always played too fast. Too fast.
I still don't know what to say. I don't. I mean, this is like, what else? I mean, I'm literally speechless. Like, I've made over 1,000 videos on YouTube and I don't know what to say anymore. This is just unbelievable. So he's talking about at the beginning when he's talking about it in the fragment, he says like Brahms doesn't count like us, like 1, 2, 1. He doesn't do that. And then you could have the impression, okay, but that's whole beat. Whole beat you count like 1 and 2, and so 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. But that's not what he meant. He is counting the quarter notes. And he said Brahms is counting in eighth notes. And then the way he's demonstrating that, he said tam, ta ta tam, ta ta tam, ta ta tam, ta ta tam. For us, it's an andante, tam, tam, tam. But this tempo for Brahms was an allegro vivace because he counted the eighth notes, tam, tam, tam. And then he makes the subdivision of the quarter notes. And so if you put this tempo, if that is the way you count the beats of the bar, and that reflects also the feeling of tempo, well, that's the definition of whole beat. Then it's one step further. It makes all the sense in the world that you would metronomize like that because the machine is just giving you that same subdivision. I mean, this is unbelievable, right? I want to hear all of you in the comment box now. Just pause this video and just let me know after hearing this fragment. Even go back in the video and just listen to it again. Sometimes a little hard to understand. It's clear enough. But just let me know right now what is your first impression. I really want to know that. So the practice that it describes is whole beat, because metronomizing, the way people use their metronome in practice, comes from the practice. It's how you count. This 1 and 2 and that's it. And he's literally demonstrating that. If I sound a little enthusiastic, that's because I am. You should too. Now, let's go to our Alberto. And you know Alberto Sanna, for those of you, sometimes I get people in the comments like, who is Alberto? Alberto is obviously the pianist that I'm working with. One of my good friends. He played all the symphonies with me, and now he continues here with the Beethoven Complete Keyboard Works. Volume 2 is going to be released in Kickstarter in December of this year. But now, first, of course, Chopin. You know that. I'm not going to repeat that. So Alberto was at my place to record, I don't know which CD, of the second box. And since it was a Saturday, and we have every 2 months on my Patreon site of my community, we have a hangout. So people join the Zoom meeting and we just talk about anything that comes up. People have questions, want to share a recording, whatever, want to ask me something. So there's the best way to become a little bit closer to the project is through Patreon. So since Alberto was here, I invited him on the Zoom call, and the question was there about the middle movement of the pathétique. Now, the middle movement of the pathétique is a very particular movement because it's one of the, I think, slowest adagios. If you consider the metronomization by Czerny or Moschles, they are all pretty similar. I have shared that story before. For me personally, this piece, the Pathétique, was one of the problematic pieces in order to believe, quote unquote, in whole beat. This was a time when Lorenz Gradient, my co-author for the book, and also who published Takt und Pendelschlag already in 2010, is studying this stuff for over 40 years. We played this at that tempo that he suggested, like a whole beat tempo, and it worked for me as long as he was there. But from the moment that he left and I was on my own, I didn't feel the same, well, what you have to feel as a performer in order to make the music work, because that's our job. And there is something that, you know, when you play and a recording or a performance falls flat, it doesn't work anymore. You don't feel like the handles and the things that you normally, the parameters, the elements, the toolbox is changed. And I felt like a little helpless for a long time, actually. That's changed. I shared a story with an adagio by Mozart, which I played exactly in whole beat without knowing. And then I realized I messed up with pieces like this because I didn't give it a chance. From that moment, everything changed. Everything became much easier. But this piece in particular is very difficult to play. And the question was asked during the hangout, particularly on the performance that Alberto has made for our YouTube channel, still on YouTube. And I think I should actually take down the entire playlist once we have finished the new versions, because of course we are learning, and there are things that also from my recordings, I played 16 of the 32 sonatas, I would change. But anyways, long story short, the question was asked to Alberto, like, but that's for me, one of my patrons said, like a problematic movement because it feels very slow, even if you play it. And then Alberto's response went on something that connects to the Casals story. Let's check it out.
And for sure, the first version that I have on YouTube was not yet at the level that I would have wanted. What changed, I think, especially in the second version, was mostly the idea that, first of all, when you play or listen to the piece at this tempo, you have to pretend as if you've never heard it. Most of times the problem comes from the fact that we have already a conception or an interpretation of that piece. And so that if you have that in mind while listening to this new tempo, of course, it becomes difficult, because then you jump from one to the other and backwards. And the other thing is, of course, the idea of flow, the idea of how a melody should work. It's not anymore the focus of this tempi. Mostly you should try to find a way to connect your heartbeat to the subdivision of the notes. Not even the faster notes, the subdivision of the fastest notes. So in the Pathétique, I guess you have to feel almost the 30-second notes.
He, as a player, says, okay, when you play in whole beat, in this particular case, so the Adagio is metronomized in eighth note. Czerny gives eighth note 56 or 54 and 60. Moscheles gives 60. And for the recording, we used Haslinger edition, the first metronomization by Czerny, which is the slowest version. Is this similar to, I think, the pianoforte school? I'm not so sure. But anyways, in that range. So Czerny metronomizes, everybody metronomizes this piece in eighth notes. Alberto said you have to feel the subdivision. And in this particular piece, because at the beginning it's so like it's only 16th notes, it gets more, of course, at the end. You almost have to feel the 32nd note. So he is actually subdividing that again. But the principle is the same. You metronomize in eighth notes, you feel the 16th notes. It was for me like this moment where I listened to Casals, hearing him say Brahms didn't count in quarter notes. In this case, tam ta ta tam ta ta tam. He counted like 1 and 1 and 2, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You count the eighth notes. That's exactly whole beat. It's a similar thing to what Alberto said here. It's unbelievable, right? I'm 100% sure that when our book is published and some people would take the time to just dive more and deeper into this, that they will discover in this early 20th century, like in letters, in diaries, whatever things that have not been published or is not public domain yet or whatever, there is much more to be found. On one condition, that you read that stuff from the perspective of whole beat, because otherwise you don't see those signs. Let's listen to Alberto, and I'm gonna have him play the beginning, which is the most difficult part for you if you're not used to listen to whole beat, and even if you are used to listen to whole beat, this is not easy. It is much easier, the Pathétique here at the end. I could also go to this passage here, which many performers today just they add the 16th note here because there's not time enough to have this ornament in a beautiful way and in a good way, I would say, played. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go even to the 16th triplets where suddenly this adagio, and Beethoven does that often, by the way, is actually speeding up so much that after listening to this entire piece in 16th notes, you have the feeling like, hold on a moment, this is going too fast. That's typically Beethoven. It's not doing that everywhere, but he knows. He's so good in timing. And of course, timing depends on the tempo. Therefore, changing the tempo changes everything. The character of the piece, the articulation, the phrasings, but also, of course, the timing of the piece, that the concept that the composer had in mind. So we're going to listen to Alberto, and then I'm going to share a fragment by Berenbohm. That's a beautiful performance, of course. The guy can play the piano, but do it in this order, because once you are used to this beat, this pulse, you will understand why Beethoven marked this piece adagio. And I'm going to spoil the Berenbohm version. That will sound to you suddenly as an andante of even faster. One thing before we listen, don't judge the tempo here. Don't search for the flow. Don't search for the overarching melody. That'll come. Just lean back. Just wait. Just let the music speak for itself. Okay, and now we just go to Berenbohm and see how it sounds here. So, again, I'm not criticizing anyone, but this is a completely different world. And Berenbohm, I've chosen him now because he's not the fastest performance. This piece is even played faster. And many performers play Beethoven faster than Berenbohm. I should say it like that. But coming from this recording now, and if it is difficult for you, just go back, just scroll back in the video and go back and listen, or go on Bandcamp and listen to this a few times. For me personally, this is not slow anymore. This is an adagio. This has this typical character of a kind of solemn feeling. It's like you're sitting there at the board of a lake and nothing is happening. It's just like the water is just flowing softly, and there is this intense peace and calm. With Berenbohm performance, there is some movement forward, there is some drive. And that's what people search for in performances and recordings these days. But connect back to Casals, the subdivision of Brahms. Here you hear the 16th notes. Metronomization, 8th note. But the metronome is sticking in 16th notes. You feel the 16th notes, and that's your pulse. Listen, guys, this Casals quote, I mean, this is like gold. There will be an epigraph also in the book, of course. So I'm very thankful for also say that, of course, on email for the person who shared that with me. That those things are not necessary to have, in the sense that, okay, Wim is so glad now finally has something, because yesterday he didn't have that, and he told us he was sure, and he actually wasn't sure because he's only sure now with his quote. No, but this adds, of course, to the understanding that this helps building the case. It's so obvious, this whole beat thing. Like if you just step back one little step from everything that you know today in musical performance practice and historically informed performance practice, if you just take a little bit of distance and you just pour the metronome marks over that, you think that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And the only thing that saves like musicians, conductors, performers, or musicologists from really answering the questions of the audience like, but hey, you're not playing according to these metronome marks. It's because we actually killed the reputation of these metronome marks. We killed the reputation of the metronome. That was like a hero device in the 19th century, especially in the early 19th century, and especially with composers like Beethoven and Chopin. And so we kind of killed that reputation. And so who cares about metronome marks today? Because we are so used to the notion that they are ridiculous. And I read in my comment box, like people writing like metronome marks, hey, my tempo is better. I know, yeah, really? That metronome, that stupid thing that's over there hidden by 2 CDs now, that was there in the work room, in the study room of Beethoven, of Chopin, of Schumann, of Mendelssohn, of all the others. That was sticking. There was producing a frequency per minute that we can reconstruct right now. It's the only thing that we can reconstruct with 100% certainty. All the rest, we will never know anymore. Fingering, phrasing, articulation, whatever. The way he played, the way Chopin played, the way he behaved. Even the way they smelled, because that has an influence on the audience as well, right? We will never be able to reconstruct that. There's only one thing and one thing only. Those are the metronome marks of which we know with for 100% sure certainty that they valued them enormously. And it's exactly that what we reject today. Guys, let me know again what you think of all of this. I really want to have your thoughts on this. And as always, when you made it so far in the video, leave me in the comment the time code and I will give it a heart. And don't forget to go on our Kickstarter page and hit that notify me on launch. And when the Kickstarter is really launched, the 2nd of June, you will be notified directly through Kickstarter. And apparently they like that very much, the people over at Kickstarter. So that was all I've got for you today, but I think it's a lot. Thank you for watching. We see each other very soon again. Bye.